Hi, I'm Harvey Hubbell, and this is Harvey Hubbell's Show and Tell. And I'm talking to Kristen Hubbell. Who are you and what do you do?
Well, my name's Kristen, and I am a reading interventionist in Woodstock, Vermont. And I also am a part-time literacy educator, teaching faculty member at the Upper Valley Educators Institute in Lebanon, New Hampshire. And I am on my 19th year teaching, currently getting my dyslexia certification from Mount St. Joseph's University, and have three kids that go to the same school that I work at.
That's perfect. That's great. How did we meet?
So we met in a pretty cosmic way. I was designing coursework for UVEI, and my first class was Language and Literacy with Letters Volume 1. And I was looking for short clips of videos to talk about what's at stake and kind of summarize research into digestible bites. And I kept coming across clips from Hopeville. And then, of course, I went to your website, did some more digging, and saw the name Harvey Hubbell. And kind of as a joke, I took a picture uh, of you and your name, the fifth, sent it to my husband, and I said, "Are you by chance related?" And the answer was yes. So Harvey Hubbell of Connecticut, and Andrew Hubbell is my husband of Iowa.
And we're cousins.
We're cousins.
Okay, so now that we've met officially, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? And we're coming there.
So we are hosting, the Upper Valley Educators Institute is hosting a regional literacy convening at Billings Farm and Museum on Saturday, May 9th. And we're going to show the film. We have a bunch of partners that are going to be joining, the Reading League, the Stern Center, my school district, IDA New England. And the goal is to bring different stakeholders together, parents, educators, community members, policymakers, decision makers, to watch the film and then have a panel discussion afterwards. And your whole team's going to be there. We have a mix of national and local leaders, and it's going to be really great.
And it's a beautiful farm. I've been to the farm, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And if anybody is within 100 miles, they should drive over and go to see it. And it's happening on what date? At what time?
Saturday, May 9th.
At what time?
Oh, doors open at 3:30, and 4 o'clock we will start the show.
It's going to be so much fun. Okay, I'm a shameless plug time. This is the time for a shameless plug. Who should see Hopeville?
Who should see Hopeville? Well, that is a great question. I think the people I just mentioned, parents, community members, um, decision makers, anybody who is invested in education, invested in our future, um, especially people who have the ability to make decisions. I was listening to Dina Mortenson's podcast, and she had a really great quote, and I wanted to find it because I thought it was so good. But she said, uh, people need to see the film so that they know about the reading crisis, know what can be done about it, and also know that their role directly impacts how we go about solving it. So it's really all of us collectively that need to come together to support schools and teachers so that we can support students better.
Bingo, and change the trajectory of our nation. That's great. That's perfect. Okay. Last question before we dive into the meat and potatoes is so you saw Hopeville. What did you like about it? What is your favorite part about Hopeville?
My favorite part, I think, was uh, for my husband watched it with me. But for me, it was so validating in what we need in order to move forward in terms of collaboration and systems and coherence. And then when I saw teachers looking at student data together with an instructional coach and problem solving in real time, and then adjusting what they were doing based on that, I felt like that just reminded me so much of the work that we do as teachers every day. Um, it's the conversations about students and the problem solving, and that's so important to our profession. And it's kind of invisible, I think, for people who aren't in that profession. So to see that in action, I think I cried a little bit because we know that programs don't teach students, teachers do.
I love that. I'm sorry we made you cry though. Okay, so we have a problem. This is all the stuff that you've written to us. A lot of your thoughts and so identify the problem. What's the problem? What's going on?
Um, well,
Why are we meeting? Why
I
are we meeting? Why are we coming up and doing a
we are
screening?
meeting, okay, we're having the screening. First of all, to raise awareness. Um, if if anybody reads the headlines, we know that as a nation, our students' reading achievement scores continue to decrease, um, and the impacts that has on not only individuals but communities and beyond are really scary. And in order to be somebody who can problem solve and think critically and participate in a democracy, students need and deserve language and literacy skills. It's like required in our society. Um, so we have a problem that we need to work together to solve. And we have the data that supports that. And if I think about my experience as an educator starting undergrad in 2002 to now being 2026, and how I've kind of lived through the changes, gone through a pandemic, I've moved 3 different states, taught in 5 different districts. Um, and I see such an opportunity with where we're at in terms of the knowledge that's out there, the research, the we know what to do now. It's the hardest part is implementing that, taking it from research to curriculum to practices in the classroom. And so that's where I'd like to focus today on.
Cousin, we travel all over the country, and this is happening everywhere. And there's NAEP scores and where your state is and everything. And there's the northern nosedive and the southern surge. But we can do better. This is the United States of America, right? So why is this happening?
Um, yeah, and if I look at like where I am now in Vermont and New Hampshire area, the Upper Valley is kind of they're small states, but really tight communities together forms this area. But we have 31% of fourth graders scored proficient or advanced on the NAEP. So if you look at that compared to the national average, we're slightly below. In New Hampshire, 36% of fourth graders scored proficient or advanced. slightly above the national average.
Wait a
But
minute.
then
If
if you
this was a
look at,
business, if this was a business, we'd be failing all those other ones. Those widgets aren't working, right? So
no,
you're saying 36% of the factory we have these widgets, 36% of them are working. The other ones are not. That's what you're saying.
yeah, in Vermont, even less. And then if you compare scores of students identified as economically disadvantaged, 28 points lower in Vermont, um, 25 in New Hampshire, and then looking at population of Hispanic students, 23 points lower than white students in New Hampshire. And so even though the averages kind of differ slightly across the states, there's obviously a challenge that we have too many students that are not proficient at reading, and the gaps um, are bigger among students who already face systemic barriers.
Eh,
So that's to just tell more about why here and why now.
Well, second language learning, Hispanics, the second language learning, they might be speaking their first language at home, might be a second, another language. Mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, they're speaking another language. I come to kindergarten, first grade, we're speaking a different language here all the time. I mean, we know that, but we just have to kind of mention that. So this is happening all over the nation. Um, and we have the statistics. And a lot of us know those statistics, and they're getting worse. We just were talking to New York State, which is going down. Mississippi's coming up, but we have the ability to fix this. I know you have this is why you cry. You cry because you care, and you were one of those educators that when people put their kids on a school bus before the pandemic, we didn't know what was going on. We put the kid in the school bus, and the kid's supposed to learn how to read there, but we're finding out that we're not doing it. So we know it's happening, but why is it happening? Why is it happening?
Um, well, I can speak to what I think. My hypothesis is that um, obviously in your film they'll discuss the reading wars in terms of a balanced literacy approach to a structured literacy approach. Historically, Vermont and New Hampshire were heavily balanced literacy states in terms of curriculum purchases and trainings and higher ed and like most of the country, really. And it wasn't until 2024 that Vermont passed Act 139 that named students in the early grades need explicit systematic instruction and code-based and comprehension-based reading skills. That was the first time where we had a state law about universal screening and providing additional support for students needing extra layers. So that was only a couple of years ago. And the policy has shifted faster than the systems have. Systems including, um, you know, leadership and aligning curriculum and assessment, instruction, MTSS, professional learning, intervention. So all of that takes a lot of strategic planning, coherence, getting people on the same page, capacity, takes funding. And then you kind of layer in where we are in the country. We're rural. Where I live has, I think, 3,000 full-time residents. Our school district is made up of 7 different towns. And the way that I know Vermont's funded is kind of tricky, based on getting extra funding for things like professional development or things, that we weren't necessarily planning on. There's a shortage of. There's a shortage of housing. There's a teacher shortage. We have about 50% of new teachers are entering the profession through site-based licensure pathways, getting emergency teaching licenses, a lot of people retiring.
50%,
Um,
50% of the teachers are coming in as like emergency auxiliary.
yes,
Wow.
yes. So that's even with the special educators.
And they have, wait,
And
excuse me, I'm the dumbest guy in the room. So they haven't been trained in higher ed into the science of reading. Hey, can you just, I'm just going to take you, I'm going to derail you for a minute.
do it.
And the science of reading, just, I mean, I know it, but you're an educator and you have a pretty good handle on the science of reading. A lot of times educators are going to say, oh, I've been doing this for X amount of years. This is just a pendulum swing. This is just, they're going to tell us to do this or do that. Why is science of reading different from that?
Um, so science of reading is like a body of research over decades, cognitive research, neuroscience, and the 2000 uh, National Reading Panel report summarized all these findings. Unfortunately, it didn't get into the classroom as it should have, and people interpreted it as they did. But it's 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 the research that guides development of the brain and how humans learn to read, which is not something that we're born with. Um, and so, anybody who's ever read Dr. Louisa Moat's Teaching Reading is Rocket Science, it's very complex, and you need to have a really deep understanding of how the brain develops literacy and language. And then decisions need to be, um, diagnostic and responsive, and there's practices that are proven to work that's aligned with that science.
You know, you're a bloody saint. I mean, you really are. I'm not just saying that because you're my cousin, because I don't really know you. But so really, if I was, if you were teaching my kid to read, you care and you know your science. You've read the science. And it's available. So okay, so I don't know. I think you kind of said it how we got ourselves into this. But what should we do about it? What does the research say? I mean, if you ran the zoo, what would you do? I mean, let's say you have a magic wand, because I know you do over in your office someplace. Um, I mean, you just gave the perfect ingredients for a war story. We're under siege. We don't have the resources we need. We don't have the people. How are you going to get us out of this one?
Well, yes, I think that's the thing that makes this a little unique where I am now. It's like we have really dedicated, amazing, uh, hardworking people, but the infrastructure piece is what we're kind of missing to implement it coherently. So I think one helpful thing is to look at what other states are doing, um, who are making improvements. Like we mentioned Mississippi earlier. But if you look at 1998, there was only 17% of their fourth graders scored proficient or advanced. And now 2024, they were up to 32 percent. And their average score is higher than the national average. It's higher than Vermont. And they've been kind of coined as the Mississippi Miracle.
But it's really
But
the Mississippi hard work, because we're not. It's the
yes,
Mississippi Marathon, is what it is.
yes,
But
that's what I was just gonna say.
okay, I'm sorry, I'm
Yes, took
stealing
the
your
words.
line.
No, you just took the words out of my mouth because um, what people they don't see the work that went into that necessarily, and it took years of investing in intentional systems and conditions so teachers could be effective. Starting with a shared understanding. And I think that's one of the reasons I want to bring Hopeville to our community is getting that shared understanding and then making that shared investment among all stakeholders. So
Who are the stakeholders? Who are
I,
the stakeholders?
yeah,
Don't forget your note on that. But who are
yes.
the stakeholders? Who has to be at our screening? Your screening, our screening. We're gonna be there. We're gonna record the screening. We want to record the panel. So who, if you ran the zoo, what would you do? Who would you
Who do,
invite if you with your magic wand?
I would love if people who are in elected roles in the state and House for Vermont, New Hampshire joined because they have the power to make this a priority to adequately, you know, support funding and work with the AOE so that we can have a really coherent system that hits all of the different districts, all of the different counties. And I think right now what we see is a lot of people are working in silos and not because they don't care, but because that's historically there's been a lot of just local control and governance, which can be great, but then what that does is capacity is limited and we need to increase capacity. So if I look to some places that have done that, I have a couple people I'd love to mention, but Dr. Liz Cannon, she is on the board of the Reading League. She is a curriculum coordinator in New Hampshire. She's actually going to be on our panel. She just did her dissertation on the New Hampshire Reading and Writing Specialist endorsement. And that's pretty interesting because I am working part-time within higher ed, and we have one of the only approved um, literacy educators programs in New Hampshire. So it's a 2-year program, and the coursework is aligned to the science of reading, and there's a huge coaching and leadership component, systems, and this role is now really considered a specialized literacy professional role. Um, and so Liz did research. She had, I think, 50 different teachers that she interviewed in 8 out of the 10 counties, I think she mentioned. But she was really looking at um, currently how our SLPs across the country, but specifically New Hampshire, um, being utilized or not utilized. And
SLP,
so
SLP.
SLP is also a term for specialized literacy professional. And so it's an endorsement. You already need to have like your master's for it. And what she found out was a lot of places, the literacy specialist served as a pull-out interventionist. They were kind of like testing coordinators. They spent most time with, students who were not accessing core, needed extra support, and also doing like a lot of coverage billing needs because of being short-staffed or people being out. So when looking at impact, it was kind of a limited amount of students that were impacted by this position. But if you look at the standards and what's required of this position, it's all connected to the International Literacy Association's description of what a literacy coach and literacy leader is. It has the potential, and it is in some places, being more of a systems leadership model where an example of like a day could be 40% of your day is coaching teachers and supporting adult learning. 30% could be strategic literacy system alignment. 20% is maybe focused on data analysis and diagnostics. And 10% is maybe a direct instruction piece. So what I see is kind of this still a teacher role, but having more of a proactive long-term system repair to support tier one through coaching, versus more reactive where we're pulling individual students out. But with that position, there's some certain things that would need to happen for it to be successful. But one being, alignment with administration, with the district, and then having collaborative PLC time. So there's shared responsibilities. But I see that this position is out there. The standards of what it is out there. But I don't know if we're utilizing this position, which would really serve as like an in-house implementation supporter.
Well, why don't we use that person? Because we never had it before. We didn't know what to do with that person. I mean, we have a school to prison pipeline problem, and so I know it's like, hey, it's not my problem. It's somebody else's problem. But the taxes you pay in your state, or I pay in my state, or somebody else pays, is incarcerating our other brothers and sisters who we failed in school, who their self-esteem, their jobs, whatever, of where they are. The people who are in prison, here goes Captain Obvious, the people who are in prison can't read. So we're graduating a bunch of people from our school systems, and we're sending them to our prisons, and it's costing us money. So pay rob Peter to pay Paul. Am I close? So we have these positions, and they're new for us, and we need advocates like you who know this stuff to talk to your community and talk to your decision makers, your policy makers, your elected officials, your board of education, your school superintendents, your curriculum chiefs, and get everybody on the same page. And you have to show up. And here's another thing, because don't keep secrets. You're doing good. Your schools are doing good numbers. You got to show people that where the reading things are. I know. So I can go in either direction. I want to know who else is going to be on your panels. Mm-hmm. But I also, let's just go to who's on your panels, because I've been drinking coffee and I'm all cranked up over here.
You're good. Well, it's great because Liz, who did her dissertation, and she's a curriculum coordinator, she is going to be on the panel. And we also have Dr. Louisa Moats.
The great Dr. Louisa Moats is going to be on the panel.
She's going to be on the panel. And
she's also in the movie.
She's also in the movie. And she also is out on our advisory council at the Upper Valley Educators Institute, which is very exciting. And we also have Dr. Julie Brown. She is our Mountain Views Supervisory Union literacy facilitator, pre-K through 12. And she was one of the people we consider Square Squad in terms of finding people who had shared background in science of reading and advocating for change. So she will be joining. We also have a high school junior named Asa. My friend Tisha Buss, who was a former Vermont state rep, and she supported Act 139. She also has a daughter who was a student of mine in intervention. So she has the parent perspective. And how many did I know? We also have Lynn Howard, who is starting Cornerstone Charter in Lebanon, New Hampshire. She is starting the first really structured literacy school. I think she's starting with K through 3. And I've spoken to her on a number of occasions. They have a great plan for supporting teachers and also students, and giving them what they need right away. What else am I forgetting?
So that's a pretty good lineup. I'm sorry if you forgot anybody, and because
I don't think I did.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have all of these great people. If So now you have a good team that's going to be there, and but there's still probably not enough funding yet. There's never enough funding. I mean, but these are any nation's greatest resources. Their youth, and as I said before, you as an educator, you know how to unlock these kids. Certainly your panel has seen it from a student's point of view, from a parent's point of view, from a legislator's point of view. So we have all the everything lining up. So this is an important screening, and I think it's a call to action. We're going to probably want to do more screenings, get more people involved, get more legislators involved, and midterms are coming up in October, and if there is an education candidate, this is the time to get there, understand the facts, because our film, we don't teach reading. You teach reading. We take complicated information and put it into layman's terms. I mean, I don't. If I can understand it, anybody can understand it. I make it so simple that I can understand it. That's why I ask you dumb questions. Okay, so is it going to work though? I mean, what does research say about this? We've talked about the Mississippi Marathon, but how are you going to apply that if you had a magic wand and you could make that happen? How would you apply the lessons of Mississippi to the states of Vermont and New Hampshire?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me the biggest lesson is we know better, so we should do better. And so first thing is let's give our educators the knowledge that they deserve. But with that knowledge, let's support them so that they can apply that with, with coaching, with mentoring, with guidance, just as we would with our own students. And I think something that resonated with me watching Hopeville was watching Dina's leadership in Waterbury, Connecticut. Obviously, big school district. I think she had 23 different elementary schools or something. And what looks different in that community was there was a relationship with the Department of Ed. I think supported Literacy How, and they also had Hill for Literacy. So the knowledge piece was there. The community commitment and people being on the same page was there. And then I heard somewhere that they doubled their literacy facilitators. And that role was super important because not only did they have somebody in every building that was designated for this role, similar to that specialized literacy professional endorsement I just mentioned, they had that person and additional reading teachers. So
Hey, I have a question. I'm going to raise my hand because you're a
yeah.
teacher. Do you have a nurse in your school?
Uh-huh.
Do you have a janitor in your school?
Yes.
Do you have a principal in your school?
Yes.
So these are key people. But so now what we know from the science of reading, because as you said this is decades of science. This isn't just some gimmick. This isn't one company or another company. In fact, that you mentioned a couple of different companies that they can work together. So if there's thousands of different districts in the 50 states and the Commonwealths and so on, each one is uniquely different and have different problems. So that's why the leadership, be it the town leadership, the elected representatives, the town, the board of education, the school superintendents, they gotta all meet together. School board, keep going.
Yeah.
We gotta work together.
I think, yeah, school board, I think, in curriculum coordinators. And I think what just struck me about seeing that model was it was a train the trainer model. So it seemed like Dina was kind of at the head of training the literacy facilitators who were out in these different buildings. And then those specialists had support through her and through their own cohort of collaboration. Then that trickled down to individual teaching teams, to individual teachers, to then students. And just as we would differentiate for, our own students, we would differentiate for individual teachers, no matter where they are in their journey. Because as teachers, we're always learning, and actually, like, the more you know, the more you feel like you don't know, because
Now
there's
you're
so
gonna
much.
now you're gonna make me cry because that's the pebble in the pond what you just talked about, and you don't know, but having enough of awareness, and we know each classroom, each teacher is in a different place. Each town is in a different place. Each student is in a different place. And that to me is the science of reading, of realizing it's like having a locksmith figuring out how this kid's brain works or this kid's brain works. They don't, in 1950s, 1960s, when I was in school in 1964, they wanted us all to learn the exact same way, and we don't all learn the exact same way. And that's what the science of literacy is teaching us. Is we're unique kids, and I loved when you're talking about empathy and for them to be able to have help with their decision making and critical thinking. I mean, this is the kind of nation I want to live in.
Yeah, and I think in the science of reading, it's like there's also like how adults learn, right? And we know that people learn by doing, they learn by a gradual release of responsibility, by modeling, discussion, feedback. Um, I think all of that is so important. And we can't do this in silos because it's too hard. You have to do it with colleagues, with leadership, and the research is also, it's evolving still. So um, there's always more to learn.
Dina
Um,
talks about
and so
reading. Dina talks about reading the new research as it comes out all the time and
yeah.
bringing it up to the teachers and everybody having a discussion on that. And so, literally, cuz my hat is off to you on you galvanizing bringing the energy together, and where it goes from there, who knows? But that's because it's there's the word unity is in the word community, and you guys all have to find the balance and find how to do it. So the action plan is first you're bringing it together.
Mhm.
You're bringing all these people together, but you know, and I guess you're
I
putting. Go on.
Go ahead. No, I guess I see the thing about where we live is that it's small. Like, it's not 6 degrees of separation, it's 2 degrees of separation, if not just one. And so, I mean, we could drive across the whole state in an hour and a half. And I think there's room to really have some regional collaboration because a lot of people are doing really good work. And I think about if we could leverage our strengths, somehow like pool resources and think of some kind of regional um, support system, that might be one way to move forward. Um, and also just getting on the same page that investing in the infrastructure, which means investing in the systems that support teachers and leaders to do this work, is the priority.
Dudette, you're
Things
a
like that.
problem solver. You're a problem solver. I like that. I mean, back in the day, back in like, when Little House on the Prairie, like they're like, okay, it's time to go get a teacher and bring a teacher into our town. I mean, it was an important person to bring in your town, and we would take turns, housing the teacher at our house, and the kids would all bring the teacher an apple, food. This is like, you need this. We might not have enough money, so nowadays, in our country and other countries, teachers almost seem more respected, and you're teaching as I said before, our greatest resource, our youth. And I've said this 100,000 times. Everybody's heard me say this. CEOs and ball players on these big sports things. They're important guys, but they get paid so much money, and teachers get paid so little money. If we were to really care about our children and to care about this, we would invest more into everything you're talking about, giving the teachers the tools they need, but doing what you're saying, bringing people together and saying, okay, what are the resources we have? We're different than Waterbury, Connecticut. We're different than Santa Barbara, California, or this place or that place. We're all a little bit different. So we all have to get together, understand the problems, and that's what we made our film to bring people together. And I've seen the film before. I like it. But the panel discussions and the Q&A. There's another one that I suggest that after you guys have a panel discussion, you can have all these people up there. Just have the people, and we can have microphones in the audience for a Q&A. So as other people, you begin to build your community and the involvement, and people can say, show me, just like the same conversation you and I are having, the model of it. How can we go forward? How can we make this work? And you know what? I'm sorry, I'm drinking coffee. The thing is, if the reading scores go up, that means it's working. That means if you give a kid a book and they can read it, they don't make an excuse to put it down. They don't throw it at you because their self-esteem is bad and they're trying to get out of doing it. If they can read you something of Henry David Thoreau on civil disobedience or Walden Pond or who knows what, then you've taught a kid how to read. Do I sound crazy yet?
No.
Give me a little bit of time. I will. Okay, so then, so we're talking about what needs to make it happen. So what are the, what are the opportunities? What are the barriers? What do we have to watch out for? I mean, one of the things you and I have talked about is doing another screening at some other time, or even, it's not too far for you to travel over to see what your brothers and sisters in New Hampshire are doing. We work close with our friends in New Hampshire. My friends are your friends in New Hampshire. So I think it's important to get people involved and call to action of like how we can fix this. And it takes 3 to 5 years. Sometimes I've heard to turn schools around, but kids don't have 3 to 5 years. And we have to invest in each of the individual children, and we have no time to waste. Anyway, I'm going to be quiet. What are our opportunities? What are our barriers? What do we have to watch out for?
I think the opportunities is that we have the knowledge, like I said, we have really talented, dedicated people. We have proximity. We know, what it looks like in other places. In New Hampshire, everybody was offered letters training. Their scores do look different than ours in Vermont. So we got to start with the knowledge, and then we really need to think about implementation. How are we going to make sure that is equitable in terms of rollout and support, and people need different things, but we need to assess what are the needs. And I think that data is, I think Liz mentioned, it's a flashlight into equity, what's working, what needs to be changed. And so having that kind of at the forefront of how we make decisions, there's, opportunity. This film is an opportunity to kind of launch that. I know there's also a lot of reform going on right now in Vermont in terms of districting and decisions. And I think that this is really where we need to put some collective energy into for the future of our state and communities and well-being.
Well, I think you're right. But how do we know if it works? I mean, you talked about Stephanie Stoller, another good friend of both of ours, and somebody who is really a change agent and an agent of good. How do we know if all this work that you're talking about is working?
Mhm. Um, I think, yeah, monitoring just student outcomes is huge, but also, you know, monitoring through observations, through
Can they
coaching
read? Can they
participation,
read? Where's their scores going up?
yeah, yeah, progress monitoring, right? For for systems and for student achievement, I think. Also, like just looking at retaining teachers, and there's we want to create sustainable model where we're building internal capacity, and if there's constantly turnover, that makes it really hard to make progress. So, I mean, I can speak from working in three different states and five different schools of the ones that I um, have wanted to show up every day, and it was those places that learning is not optional. It's like it's required. That's the kind of culture that I thrive in, and continuous improvement. And I think that's what we need to be constantly having our North Star on.
I think
If that
that's
makes
great.
sense.
I have a, I was talking to friends of mine about underserved populations, and one of my dear friends wants to find the 25 worst cities and towns, districts in America. And it's like nobody's going to cop up to saying, hey, we're the worst. But we all, take a look at your data and you can begin to figure it out. But what the code words you and I talk about is are they, and all the educators talk about, is fourth grade. Are you reading at grade level at fourth grade? Because that is an indicator of what's going to happen in the rest of the journey. So by not having money enough to take care of everybody, it seems that either our priorities aren't correct or we're underserved. I mean, investing, if America, is number one, wants to stay number one, you have to invest in its people. I mean, we know that. So, I mean, you have a small community, but you probably have people spread out. You have 7 towns. You have buses that bring kids in. That's some kids must be on the bus for a while
Yeah,
on a snowy January February day in
hmm
Vermont. I bet you that's a lot of fun to get on the bus, wake up early, and
yeah,
so you got challenges.
hmm yeah, yeah. And I mean, cost of living, housing shortage. I mean, there's a lot of pieces historically being balanced literacy for the last how many decades. It's a lot of uh, systems that need changing, but a lot of really dedicated people who are invested in Vermont and all the great things that we have here.
So we want to come back to Vermont a couple times, through New Hampshire, through New York, and we're going to be on tour, going to a couple of these things. So, but you talked about some other fun things too, about other people, like there's teaching in the woods. Tell me what these things are, because I'm
Yes. Well, I think that's the other structured literacy, and also structured literacy leading to things like deeper learning, like I mentioned before. We have such a great like outside resources in terms of nature and also community partnerships. Um, Specifically in our town, we have Billings Farm and Museum where we'll have our convening. We have a national park. We have Ski Mountain. We have the Appalachian Trail. We have a low ropes course at our upper elementary school. And the people who choose to live in Vermont care deeply about Vermont and place. And um, so I think one thing that makes us really unique is um, literacy leading to place-based learning. Um, they can go hand in hand. My daughter is in pre-K and she every Friday has Forest Friday and they go into the woods and have lessons out there. Um, we have teachers that do different things with like we had a history unit, our fourth grade team, and they would study from Billings Farm different events or people, reenact them, and dig really into like old files from our historical center and so many opportunities to talk to different community members, to learn about um, the environment and just caring for it, being a steward.
Well, you're
So
making learning fun. I mean, Billings Farm is a great location. You know, when you mentioned that place, I mean, Stephanie and I, my wife and I were there. And you know, we have the RV. We drive around. We were at Billings Farm. When you told us that that was an incredible place, but you know, you're either a fixed mindset, as you well know, you're a fixed mindset person. I learned everything I needed to know in high school. I learned everything I needed to know in college. I learned everything I needed to know in elementary school, or you're a lifelong learner and you're learning stuff and you know, Vermont nature, it's not too hard to start putting these things together. But, you know, what you're talking about at Billings Farm, learning that kind of way, that's like the lab school, that's like AIM Academy. That's and hands-on learning, kids are learning and they're reenacting being, you know, any of these people in history or did something. So that's really incredible. So we're looking forward to that. We want to come up and get some video of that and meet some people and meet some families and meet some kids and meet some educators and meet some leaders. So what else are we missing? We've talked about a lot of stuff, but we could go on, and we will. And we're going to come up and you're going to still talk to us more and show us more and we're going to see that. But what else are we missing right now that we should be thinking about?
um, I think we probably covered everything. I think really it's just investing in uh, literacy education and like you said, our greatest resource is the next generation, is our children, and wanting them to have the opportunity to be mindful and thoughtful and take care of themselves, take care of others, take care of our world is kind of the goal. So we have a lot of the ingredients, um, but I think this convening will help us take the next step.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
All right, that's good. So I think we're good, and we'll figure things out.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. You're the best.
You're the best. Thank you.
All right.